Welcome to Qt Fast Track series for API 570 Piping Inspection Code, in-service inspection, rating, repair, and alteration of piping systems. In this lecture, we will discuss Clause 1, Scope. This section provides an overview of the general structure of the text in Clause 1. The following is a list of all the sub-clauses as listed in the table of contents. In the following slides we highlight important information contained in Clause 1 accompanied by the sub-clauses. General application coverage. API 570 covers inspection, rating, repair, and alteration procedures for metallic and fiberglass reinforced plastic (FRP) piping systems and their associated pressure relieving devices that have been placed in service. API 570 inspection code applies to all hydrocarbon and chemical process piping that have been placed in service unless specifically designated as optional. Process piping systems that are temporarily out of service but have been mothballed, preserved for potential future use, are still covered by API 570. The intent of API 570 is to specify the in-service inspection and condition monitoring program that is needed to determine the integrity of piping. API 570 was developed for the petroleum refining and chemical process industries, but may be used, where practical, for any piping system. It is also the intent of API 570 that users shall respond to any inspection results that require corrective actions to assure the continued integrity of piping consistent with appropriate risk analysis. It is intended for use by organizations that maintain or have access to an authorized inspection agency, a repair organization, and technically qualified piping engineers, inspectors, and examiners. Limitations. API 570 shall not be used as a substitute for the original construction requirements governing a piping system before it is placed in service. Nor shall it be used in conflict with any prevailing regulatory requirements. If the requirements of API 570 are more stringent than the regulatory requirements, then the requirements of API 570 shall govern. Specific applications. The term non-metallics has a broad definition, but in API 570 refers to the fiber-reinforced plastic groups encompassed by the generic acronyms FRP, fiberglass reinforced plastic, and GRP, glass-reinforced plastic. The extruded, generally homogeneous non-metallics, such as high and low-density polyethylene, are not specifically covered by API 570. Included fluid services. API 570 applies to piping systems for process fluids, hydrocarbons, and similar flammable or toxic fluid services, such as the following: raw, intermediate, and finished petroleum and chemical products, catalyst lines, hydrogen, natural gas, fuel gas, and flare systems, sour water and hazardous waste streams, hazardous fluid services, cryogenic fluids such as liquid N2, H2, O2, and air. High-pressure gases greater than 150 psi such as gaseous H, E, H2, O2, and N2. Optional piping systems and fluid services. The fluid services and classes of piping systems listed below are optional, or excluded with regard to the requirements of API 570. Hazardous fluid services below designated threshold limits, as defined by jurisdictional regulations. Water, including fire protection systems, steam, steam condensate, boiler feed water, and Category D fluid services as defined in ASME B31.3. Other classes of piping that are exempted from the applicable process piping code. Fitness for service, FFS, and risk-based inspection, RBI. For inspection planning and engineering assessment of in-service pressure containing piping components, API 570 inspection code recognizes the applicability of. Fitness for service provides detailed FFS assessment procedures for specific types of damage that are referenced in this code. Risk-based inspection, RBI, methodologies. API 580 provides the basic minimum and recommended elements for developing, implementing, and maintaining a risk-based inspection, RBI, program for fixed equipment, including piping. API 581 provides a set of methodologies for assessing risk, both probability of failure and consequence of failure, and for developing inspection plans. Review questions. Question number 1. Process piping systems that are temporarily out of service but have been preserved for potential future use. Answer is C. Question number 2. The intent of API 570 is to specify. Answer is A. Question number 3. Which of the following fluid services can be considered optional under the requirements of API 570? Answer is C. Question number 4. If the requirements of API 570 are more stringent than the jurisdictional requirements, the answer is A. Question number 5. Which of the following excluded from API 570? Answer is A. Question number 6. Who shall respond to any inspection results that require corrective actions to assure the continued integrity? Answer is D. This lecture is prepared by Samir Saad, and this is his profile.